If you stick around to the end, to the outro, which I know a lot of you don't do, just going to let you know that I had a weird, creepy encounter the other night when I got home. And normally I say stupid shit, say dumb stuff in the outro, but today I just told this weird encounter that I had. And if you're interested in that or you want to listen to that, stick around till the end or just click to the outro. All right, let's get into today's. Let's get into today's stories. Three or 4 years ago, I decided to check out Tinder and see what it was all about. Thinking, what the hell? I had nothing to lose, and I quickly made a profile. After an hour or so of checking out the app and figuring out how to use it, I matched with a guy in my area and we started talking. We spent most of that afternoon exchanging messages and chatting, asking questions and getting to know one another. By late afternoon, he'd given me his cell phone number and we took the messages away from Tinder and started texting. For a few days after, everything was normal, and we were having nice chats almost daily. Naively, I thought this was all pretty cool. Somehow matching with someone so nice that had similar interest on my first go using Tinder. But boy, was I wrong. On the fourth day of us texting back and forth, his tone shifts, and he starts asking really odd questions, some of them sexual, and some of them not. There had been a little bit of flirting between us, and a few double entendres and etc., but nothing like what he started asking. A lot of his questions were really sexually specific, and I quickly nipped this in the bud and told him that I was uncomfortable. He apologized for this and accepted how I was feeling. We proceeded from there, albeit a lot more cautiously on my part. I didn't have a lot of dating experience at the age of 20, and this was my first time using Tinder and online dating. I thought this was normal behavior. However, I knew to not ignore the odd feeling I had in the pit of my stomach. When he asked me if I'd like to meet up for coffee a couple of days later, I accepted somewhat reluctantly. I knew enough about this sort of stuff to make sure to tell people that I was going out, especially with who and where we were going, just in case anything happened. After we agreed on a local coffee shop, the tone turned again, and he started making all these assumptions. And I had to tell him several times that I would not be sleeping with him straight away. The final straw came when he started texting me saying that we should run away together, that he was going to take me away and we can elope. Just as I'm formulating a text to send back to him in reply to the "I want to whisk you away" text, my phone pings, and I get a message from him telling me that he has rope and duct tape in the back of his car ready for us to use. I noped out of there real quick, stopped replying to his messages, blocked him, and then reported his profile through Tinder. I wasn't really sure what to do with this situation outside of that, but I for sure made anybody around me know that was using Tinder. I would let them know about this guy, so if he came up, they would know not to match with him. So, guy with the rope and duct tape in the back of his car who wants to take a girl away. Let's not meet again. So I'd just gotten out of a pretty significant relationship with someone of 4 years, nearly engaged and moving in together, when things fell apart. It took a good amount of time to be back on my own and get my shit together. When my friends began encouraging me to get back out there, needless to say, I wasn't really wanting anything at that point, nor looking for anything. But they insisted that I at least go check out and go on a few casual dates for practice, just to kind of get my skills back together, so to speak. I think they were all just kind of concerned because I'd become quite a hermit. So I matched with this girl who's home from college for the summer. She was a little out of the way from me, but I was eager to meet her, and she seemed really interested as well, and was even willing to come to my area to meet. I really wasn't that interested, to be truthful, but my friends again encouraged this. You know, practice, whatever the hell that means. A date doesn't mean commitment. Whatever. I want to be very clear though. I was honest and explicit with her from the very beginning that I was not looking for anything serious, or really anything at all. I was very forthcoming that I'd gotten out of something serious and was just kind of encouraged to explore. She persisted and still wanted to meet me, so we agreed to a casual lunch in a sports bar that week. So I get there. She was already waiting for me. I was a bit put off by how much different she looked than her pictures. I'm not trying to sound shallow or anything, but her pics from Tinder easily had to be at least 5 years old, which I verified based off of the tattoo she had in person versus the one she didn't have in pics. So I was a bit thrown off by that. I wasn't the least bit attracted to her, but I was there to just have new experiences anyway, right? No big deal. I felt so bad because the entire time she seemed incredibly shy and awkward. I even noticed her hand shaking when she reached for her glass, which I actually found endearing, honestly. So I did my best to get her talking and tried to keep her feel more relaxed. I asked her questions and chatted about things you figure you chat about on dates like this. Where she grew up, music you're into, school you go to, what major are you in? All to which I literally received only one-worded answers. It went on like this for an hour. She was not working with me at all. But I tried to keep room in my heart because it was clear she was feeling anxious, and I understand that on a personal level. And she pulls out a book and says, "I got this for you." And I responded gratefully, thanking her and inquiring what it was about, because hey, if someone wants to share a good read with me, I'm all for that. She looks at me funny and says in a very sudden but odd tone, "You're kidding, right?" I'm very confused. I just kind of look at her like, "What?" And she says, "This is your favorite book. You told me this was your favorite book." To which I said, "No, I have never heard of this before." So we concluded that she ultimately got me confused with someone else she must have been chatting with, which I honestly found hilarious. She was embarrassed, obviously, but I made light of it and said I found it funny, because I get it. That's Tinder culture, I guess. So as we finish lunch, I'm still receiving one-worded answers despite our funny moment. And I kind of become a bit suggestive that we should conclude our date by saying I had to get back to feed my animals and do some laundry. She became very adamant on spending more time together and asked if we could do something else. I was genuinely trying to be a decent person here, so I agreed. And we found a nearby park to walk in, and that's where the shit gets really weird. We sat on a park bench. Mind you, it's broad daylight. There's kids playing basketball nearby, folks jogging past us. I start making conversation yet again, but still getting that one-worded answer. Then seemingly out of nowhere, without any warning whatsoever, she proceeds to kiss me really aggressively, tongue and everything. I was honestly just so shocked that I just stood there frozen, not knowing what the hell to do. I had this timid, shy woman who's really not made much conversation with me at all, who was so nervous she was visibly shaking, just turned into a freaking bear mauling my face in like 0.6 seconds. My head was spinning with confusion and anxiety, and I swear it felt like it lasted forever, and I just prayed for it to stop. I was put off so bad and honestly afraid to do or say anything. Like, what do you even do in that situation? I was hoping she picked up on my very obvious body language that I wasn't reciprocating anything whatsoever. I was completely unprepared for a situation like this. And then this really nasty, disgusting guy walks by, gawking and catcalling us. Literally began to proposition us into a three-way. And I'm just like, WTF is going on? I need to get out of here. I was 1,000 different types of uncomfortable. Thankfully, I ended up warding off the guy after telling him very politely, no, more than several times, all the while she's just laughing. And I'm thinking, who even are you? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde over here. So he leaves. And now I'm insisting that I need to leave as well and go home. She seems to ignore what I'm saying, gets very close to my face again and says, "Did you like that? Do you think I'm sexy? Do you want me?" When I tell you I was nervous, I was like, I really need to go home. And she was like, "Can I come?" And I told her very firmly, no. She literally tried to persuade me to let her come back to my place with me. And I had to say no more than 3 times. So finally I'm home and frankly just kind of shaken up. I hadn't really done the dating thing in quite a long time, but that felt abnormal. She texts me after she gets home and asks me out on a second date. I was still being very kind despite being made incredibly uncomfortable, and told her I thought she was a very cool chick and I had a nice time. Lie. But I did not feel anything there, and I reminded her that I wasn't looking for anything again. She text bombed me a bunch of crazy shit, saying how she didn't understand and was so confused, that she thought that I was so into her and that things went great. I did not respond to any of these messages because now she's continuing to cross boundaries, and I said what I needed to say, and I thought I was being very decent by at least being honest with her. The text continued. I figured they're gonna eventually stop because it was just a first date, right? How can someone be so upset over someone not reciprocating on a first date? They did not stop. By the text, you would have thought we just ended a 2-year relationship, and she began calling me, at which point I had to block her number. So, Nightmare Tinder Girl, please, for the love of everything, let's never ever meet again. This happened about 15 years ago. At the time, I was dating around and had a few creepy encounters during this, but this guy took the cake. He was an acquaintance my brother had met at a bar a few times and was showing around the local area because he was new to the country. My brother set us up because he was apparently desperate for a girlfriend, and I guess I was pretty desperate too, because we ended up going on a date together. This date was probably the worst date I've ever been on. I showed up to the restaurant we were meeting at, and he was late, which isn't really that big of a deal, so I let it slip and we went to sit down. To be honest, I knew from the start I wasn't attracted to this guy, but I thought I would just be polite and see if we had a nice night. He started off politely too. He held the door for me, pulled my seat out, all of that stuff. It wasn't really necessary, but it was a nice gesture. Then, when we were sitting down waiting for someone to come and take our order, I was reading the menu and he started talking about how much his fiance would have liked this place. That took me by surprise, and I naturally asked about his fiance. He revealed that he had a fiance before moving over here, but he had just left her to move to another country. So I asked why they had broken up, and he said they never really technically broke up as such, but he got fed up with her nagging him about various things and just moved away. I didn't really know what to say after that, so I changed the subject and started asking him more about himself and where he used to live. He wasn't really very forthcoming. Finally, our waiter came over and started asking us what we were going to order. To clarify for the next part, our waiter was a man of color and he had an unusual accent for that area. So my date just stares blankly at him for a while, then turns to me and says, "You understand this guy?" And I said yes, I could easily understand him, before telling him our orders. After our waiter left, this guy continued to shock me. He said, "I would normally leave ordering to the lady, but that guy talked weirdly and I didn't get it." Wow. Way to tell me you're a racist and a sexist in one breath, dude. Again, I was speechless for a few moments before I ended up getting angry with him. I don't remember verbatim what I exactly said. It was just something along the lines of, "Well, I'm not a lady, so I can order for myself just fine, thanks. And why make racial remarks?" Then he got annoyed with me, told me he wasn't being racist, he just wasn't used to that kind of person where he was from. I pointed out that he wouldn't have met me if he just stuck to people he was used to be within his country. He did end up calming down after that and told me he wouldn't want that, because he's glad that he did meet me. Honestly, I found that a little weird, given that I didn't see any way to say that this date was going well, and he didn't know me very well, at all. But I decided that we had ordered, I should just stay, get my meal, and try to redeem the evening before I leave, and definitely never see this guy ever again. So I answered most of his questions about me, those basic getting to know me and small talk stuff for the most part. Then started on about my previous dates, if I was a virgin, whether I would be willing to wait until marriage, and then be submissive to my husband or not. It was at this point I realized that I was most likely on a date with a religious bigot, hence the misogyny, the weird attitude, the sexual stuff, and all his other closed-minded bullshit. So I settled for a none of your business. Now, I need to leave. I checked the prices on the menu and left the money for my half of the food plus a tip on the table and got up to leave. He said he didn't see why I was being unreasonable with him, as though this had been a normal date, but then told me that I couldn't expect him to take my money, because that was an insult to him. Fine. You want to pay for my meal that's not getting eaten? Go ahead, pay for it. I'm not even going to be mad that you're spending your money on food that didn't get ate. So I took my money back and walked straight out. And I just assumed that yes, this was an awful evening, but I would never have to see him again. I wasn't even back to my house when my brother started texting me, asking me where I was, because my date had called him in tears saying that I'd gone off for no reason and he didn't know where I was or what to do. Thankfully, my brother was pretty calm about it and assumed that I'd left for some sort of reason. I explained everything to him and he was pretty surprised too. After that night, we both tried to cut contact with this dude. My brother stopped meeting up with him and we both blocked the Facebook account that we had for him too. My brother had to block his number too because he would not stop texting him about me, alternating between being really worried about me to saying he hoped I dropped dead. Then he started making endless different accounts on social media to harass us. He told my brother he didn't know why we weren't talking to him. He posted a bunch of weird posts describing me in detail before going on to call me a lot of horrible names. We continued to block them and moved on. The harassment got worse. He found me and followed me at some point, or got my address from a friend and then just turned up one day, standing around outside my house asking to come in and speak to me. When I refused to let him in, he grabbed my arm to prevent me from going in, and started to tell me that he didn't want to let me go because I would never find a man who loved me like he would, and that if I walked away from him again, I would regret it one day when I was old and lonely. He went on and on like this for ages while I tried to pull my arm away from him. Before I finally got fed up of this, yelled at him to get off me and leave me alone, and kicked him in the shin. He let go of my arm but cursed at me and said I was being ungrateful to him. And I took my opportunity to run inside and lock my door. He started banging on my door and trying to push it inward. I was getting both upset by this man and super fed up of his presence in my life. So I grabbed my phone and called the police, telling him that someone was trying to get into my house. I was told that someone would be here soon. But 20 to 30 minutes later, there was no sign of anyone or anything. I was getting really upset and nervous because he was still forcing himself into the door, and I thought the lock would break soon. So I called my brother who lived nearby, just because I knew he would come, even though I wasn't sure if he would be able to help much. About 15 minutes later, my brother turned up after a brief conversation that I didn't quite hear outside. He was gone off the door, and I waited a few minutes and then texted my brother to see what was going on and if it would be alright to look outside now. He didn't reply, and the next thing I heard was the police turning up. So I did go outside to see what was going on. Apparently, after my initial call, they had received another call from a neighbor saying there were two men fighting on my lawn. I guess this was my brother and the guy, since my brother looked out of breath and pretty shook up, and that guy wasn't around anymore. My brother explained to the police that he had tried to stop the man from getting into my house, and then the man had hit him. I told my side of the story, and some of the other neighbors were asked what they'd seen, and if they were able to tell them about his attempts to get inside. Plus, there was marks on the outer side of the door where he had repeatedly tried to get inside. The police went to look for him, and a few weeks afterward, I was called and told they thought they had found him, but when they wanted me to look at the suspect, it definitely wasn't the same man. I never heard anything else, and I really don't know what happened to him. I never saw him again, so I'm probably safe after 15 years. Regardless, I don't ever want to see that guy again. Thanks for listening if you stuck around at this point. If you haven't yet, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and that notification bell to be notified when future episodes come out. If you have a true scary story of your own, feel free to send it to my email or post it to my subreddit. You can stalk me on Twitter, you can stalk me on Instagram, and you can also stalk me on Facebook. All these links are below. Hey, what's your worst first date? Do you got one? Do you have one? Do you need one? I'm sure you can go out there and find one. I did have a weird experience the other night that I'll tell you about that has nothing to do with first dates, but I was telling some of my buddies about it on Saturday night when we were all hanging out and talking. So I was heading back from my mom's house to my house, which is only about maybe a 6-minute drive. And on the way there, I pass this car up. Or I get behind this car. It's going like 50. It's like an old, dingy car. Like this old, like Buick. Old car. And it's going like 50. So I'm like, I'm behind it for a while. And I keep trying to pass it and I can't pass it. Cars keep coming on the opposite side. So finally, I get the opportunity. Just as like I'm right on the outskirts of my town. And I finally get the opportunity to pass this dude. And I'm just, at this point, I'm so irritated and just, I'm ready to go home. So I just fucking fly by him, get in front of him, get into town. And he's obviously still behind me the whole time. And I get into my town, and once I get into, it's a smaller town. So I come up to this four-way stop. I make a right. I go over some tracks. Okay, I make a right, I pass a couple of blocks, and then go over some tracks, I make a left, and then I make another right. And then a couple of blocks after that, I'm home. The car follows me from after I pass it. They make that right, they follow me, they go over the tracks, they make the left behind me, and then they make the right again. And that's enough turns to where I'm just like, I don't know, this must be a really big coincidence that you happen to just live on the same street, but it's not impossible, right? So I go and pull into my house, pull into my driveway, and the car comes driving by and all of a sudden stops and then pulls into my driveway. I don't know this car, don't know who's inside. All I see is the same car that I just passed pull into the driveway. So I'm like, all right, this is some fucking teenager, some fucking asshole, some douchebag that got pissed off because I passed him because they were driving 50 and something's about to fucking go down. So, and keep in mind, my 4-year-old is in the truck at this point in time. So I'm kind of nervous, like, what the fuck who are you? What are you doing? And so I shut the door and I see the driver's side door open up on this car and an older gentleman gets out. And so I'm kind of taken back. I'm like, what the, okay. And I was like, hey, can I help you? Why are you following me to my house? Can I help you with something? What's going on? And he's like, well, you passed me on the road back there, and I just wanted to let you know that your turn signal didn't work. And I'm like, what? I was like, all right. He's like, yeah, it's a nice truck, just wouldn't want anything to happen to it. I just thought I wanted to follow you and let you know that your turn signal wasn't working. So this is awkward. It's weird. The situation is kind of tense because I just don't know how to even react or what to say. I'm just like, all right, thanks, I guess. And so I kind of go through the motions. I turn my truck back on and I hit the right turn signal and it works. Turn signal works fine. And he's like, oh, okay, well, for some reason it wasn't working. And I'm like, I know I hit the turn signal. I don't know what to tell you, man. I hit the turn signal when I passed you. You're only going like 50, so, and he's like, okay, well, I just wanted to let you know. Gets back in his car, leaves. Now, I've got 2 takeaways from this situation. I know this isn't really that scary of a story, but it's just fucking weird. And one takeaway, I think that this guy is just from a generation of people where that is a normal thing to do. You would have followed somebody home just to be kind and to tell you, hey, your taillight's not working, your turn signal's not working, just wanted to give you a heads up because you probably can't see it because it's obviously on the rear of your vehicle. That's one scenario. 2 is this dude had some kind of ill intentions or wanted to mouth off or wanted to do something, which still I don't think is the case. And then saw me and changed his mind, or I don't know what happened. I think more than likely it is the case that he was just being nice. He didn't come off as weird, but just the situation is weird, you know, like in 2023, you don't follow somebody home to tell them that their tail light is out or their turn signal's not working. You just don't fucking do that, man. It's weird. Like that, I was really thinking shit was about to pop off, and obviously it didn't. I'm thankful it didn't because, like I said, my 4-year-old was sitting in the backseat of my truck at this point in time. So, and both of my guns are nowhere near me. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just the whole thing was weird. Again, I think it was just maybe him being nice and genuine, but I don't know. Again, it's 2023. You don't follow somebody home and do that. You just don't. It's fucking weird, man. I hate that the world has come to the point where you can't follow people home to tell them something like that or signal them to let them know. It is just a different world. It's a completely different world, and I don't trust people. I don't trust you. I don't know you. Don't follow me home. It's weird. Long story short, or short story long, I should say. But just had that encounter the other night. Kind of fit in with some of these, not first date stories, but just creepy stories in general. So kind of wanted to share that, see what your thoughts are. All right. Cheers. I'll see you guys in the next one.